Hi, this is Kevin Kraut. I have a story that is kind of a unique story. I had a request by one of my viewers that asked the question, could you tell us a little bit more about your father possibly becoming a general authority, or was put up to be a general authority at one time? And I asked my dad this story, and he says, never mind, it's not important. And I kept trying to ask him, he just wouldn't tell me. And so finally I called my uncle Neil McBride. He was the one that actually made these little metal gold plate Book of Mormon replicas that they were sold at Deseret Book for years and years. And so I called my uncle and I said, look, Uncle Neil, I need to know this story. You know, I'm studying fundamentalist stuff, and I'm reading this stuff about Dad, and I don't know, I just, you know, I'm tired of people lying to me, and they won't tell me the truth, and Dad won't tell me anything about this. And my uncle, you know, I was asking him a question about my dad almost becoming general authority. And he says, well, I don't really want to tell you that story, it's not a very good one, and this and that. And I says, well, all right, I think I'll just go join some other religion. You know, kind of jokingly. And he goes, okay, I'll tell you a story. I says, okay, good. So he says, here's the story. He says, we were down in Fruita, Colorado, near Grand Junction. I think it was in Grand Junction. And I don't remember exactly the placing and the timing, whether, you know, who came or all that. It was all way before I was ever born. But they said that they held kind of a council, and most of the general authorities showed up. And there had to be somewhat of a majority or a majority in order for somebody to be called or appointed into either the apostleship or into the Quorum 70s. And I don't know which one it was, and that was one or the other. But anyway, they got pretty darn close. Everybody raised their hand, voted for my father to come in. They all liked my dad. He was his you know, historian. He was quite a character. He was fun. He laughed. Carried on. And anyway, we'll go on. And so he came in one day, and he says that he came in, sat down, and he was the actual scribe or the clerk of the meeting. And they all voted on Dad. There was one guy that hadn't quite showed up. He showed up, and he walked in, and he said, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to vote for Ogden. And he says, well, why don't you vote for Ogden? I mean, everybody likes Ogden. And he says, oh, I don't have a problem with Ogden either. I like him too. But the reason is that I don't want to vote him in because his wife is not general authority material. And they all were like, what, you know? And he says, oh yeah, she's way too overweight. Way too overweight. And my uncle said at that point, he says, I slammed my pencil down, and I'd had enough of that, and I just walked out of the meeting. And apparently, you know, the guy turned and says, well, did I offend him? And they said, well, darn right, that was his sister you were just talking about being overweight. And he goes, oh no, you know, and so anyway, so they kind of canceled it out, and nothing ever became of it. And so I asked my dad later about this incident, and he said, well, yeah, that's kind of how it went, yeah. And I said, well, tell me more. Who was the guy that did it? And he said, no, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want you to know anymore. It's just irrelevant. I don't want. He just didn't want to hear any more about that story. And he says, you know, I'm where the Lord wants me. I'm trying to preserve the old religion, which is what I was called. I was ordained under Joseph Musser. He set me apart, you know, to keep these old principles alive and write these books. And so that's what I did.